How much research do you do before you go to an area like Greenland? Have an idea of different, experiences you want to have and foods you want to try?
Oh, great question. So, in general, I tend to do an enormous amount of research over many years. But I also, what I research really is just there to posit questions for when I'm there. Because I find that most of what I've read and most of what's written in the books, whether they're anthropological or observational, someone telling a biography of having visited that region, or more scientific, it's usually off base by quite a bit. And the deeper I get to know the culture, the more I get there. So I'll do the research so that I can see what plants, what animals are in the region. I can ask pointed questions and see about that. But usually the bulk of my learning happens on the ground, I would say.
And what are your goals when you go to an area like that? How much of it is for your own life experience and knowledge? And how much of it is to, share with the masses and have a bigger impact?
Well, I would say I am insatiably curious because it has been so fascinating to see so many populations in extremely perfect health. And so I've really just had this hunger to learn. And that would be really what's driving me most. And also why I think I've been successful in getting those relationships and getting to spend time in those regions, because these cultures operate very different than us. They don't have time like we do, or these schedules. In fact, many of them, and each one is different. But to give you an example, in many of the Arctic regions, not all, but many of the communities that I've stayed with, breaking your promise is a good thing. So if they say to you, yeah, I'm going to take you to this town on this day, and then it becomes that day, what is important to them is authenticity. That's what's prized. So they don't think anything of breaking a contract or backing out of something they had agreed to do. So you could show up and they may not come for 2 more weeks to take you to where it is. And so if you come with a real agenda to these regions, you would get angry and frustrated and stressed. You kind of have to go, experience, and then take the gems that you learn and go from there. So that's typically what I'm doing. Now, there are times like when I've been hired by film crews or something like that, where I have to get certain things, and that is stressful. Yes, that is different. But when I go, no, it's less so. It is something that I really want to bring to the public. So I'm kind of starting, we'll see if it happens, but I think I'm wrapping up some of my travels so that I can make this digestible for you all, because it would really change the trajectory of my life when I read about some of these communities. And these books were written in the 1800s. And as I went and saw some of these communities, I felt like now everything is kind of not taken seriously, right? You read something and you're like, well, maybe, right? But if you actually see something with your own eyes, that's very impactful. And so I've been taking video of the places I've gone and videoed the interviews and the people and that kind of thing when I can. There are times, like there was many times just in the last month when I was driving around to the Sami cultures, where I didn't even take out my camera or ask, because there's so many political things going on that I didn't want to put them in a bad position. So it takes me a long time before I'll bring a camera out. But in the meantime, while I'm kind of building the relationships, I'm really learning quite a bit. And I also get the benefit of getting to live in that way for a short period of time, which is delightful.
As you're traveling around and having these experiences, do you run into other people that are doing a similar thing? Because from my perspective, it seems like what you're doing here is very unique. We talked about you've been to all the blue zones, and it seems like every time I hear you, talk on an interview, I'm hearing about different places you visited and these experiences. How many people out there have lived a similar type of life, in your opinion, and had these kind of experiences and this travel experience like you've had?
Oh, I don't know, but I do see people out, but not in most of the end regions that I go to. And I'll see people that are curious about the culture, going on a cultural vacation, that go to some of the closer communities, that you can get to within a matter of days. Kind of thing, but I don't see anyone going with a purpose. Now, there's some footprints from people that have gone before me. So sometimes I'll see a structure that was built by some anthropologist or someone that was in the region to survey something. Many of these regions, there's been a lot of mining, sometimes as far back as the 17 or 1800s, where foreigners came in for a short period of time and then left, and they'll sometimes leave a footprint. So there's some of that. But I haven't really seen people going out and trying to learn from them so much, or with the same motivation, I would say. And yeah, yeah, I do bring people on my trips sometimes. So some of my friends have come, my colleagues have come. But yeah, no, not really. No. In fact, even the communities think I'm very strange for wanting to come in, and also for the things that I'll want to do, like go for hunts, because at least as far as I've seen in all the communities on all the continents that have people, the women don't hunt, and so they think it's very strange that I would like to come. But they tend to let me go as often as I'd like. So that's very nice. They're very gracious about that.
Well, a layer to this that is so incredible is the fact that you're not just doing it in one area. You're continuing to do this in all different areas of the world and in different climates. You mentioned the Sami, we talked about Greenland. You've been all over.
Yeah.
So that's to me such a layer to all this. The fact that you have this diversity to your travel experience that seems like it has to be very rare.
I think it's really important. I've really been doing that on purpose, because it's so often that someone goes to a region, and I mean, this happened with the Blue Zones, for a short period of time, thinks that they know a lot, and then leaves, and then tells the world that they should all eat that way. And and I knew from my upbringing, and also from a number of other things, that it's very clear from history that humans can be in peak health, a level that we can't imagine, on many different diets. But those diets have things in common. And so when I really saw a lot of the fighting, or the butting up against of other practitioners or other influencers around certain diets, right? Like, this is the vegan camp, and this is the paleo camp, and this is the keto camp, and this is the carnivore, and then there's divisions within them all, and they all think low of each other. And from the onset of my practice, I taught over 41 different diets. The main thread was that they had to be ancestral, and then you cater them based on the person's need and the very specific needs of the condition. And so you certainly don't need it to be that complicated. Don't all feel like you have to go out and learn 41 different methods. You don't, but at all. But I really, I see this incredible epidemic of illness, mental and physical, and it's heartbreaking. I go to these regions and I know what's coming for them, because they're going to lose their health very quickly. Really, in this generation, it's going to go downhill. And we're so far beyond that it's almost past a tipping point, right? If we were in a world war right now, there couldn't be proper recruitments. That's how unhealthy our boys and men are. And women are far less healthy than the boys and men, just by the nature of the hormones fluctuating and the issues that you can have there. So in this environment. And so I see all of this, and I think really the more important thing is not who's helping get the education out there or the knowledge out there, but that people can see real practical applications of these different things and see why certain people promote different protocols, and why it works for certain people at certain stages of life and illness and all of that. And so that's really been a large part of my focus, was to show how different the protocols are, or the diets are, in different regions, and what benefits you might get from those.
Say you're working with somebody, say up in Russia, versus somebody suffering from the same mental or physical challenge down in Mexico. How much of that diet will be based around the location that person's living in
It's a good question.
versus,
Yeah.
we talked about organ meats before, and it sounds like that would be a piece of any healing diet, but how much of it would be a certain template that you would go by, and how much of it would be based on the location that person that's doing the healing is living in?
Often when I get someone, and I should preface by saying that I tend to work with very disabled people that have been sick for a long time. So I'm not getting someone who's just like overweight, right? Or a mild condition. But with the really severe ones, we often ignore the location for the most part because we have we have to work quickly with the microbiome and to regenerate things. So it's often a more very restrictive. I don't think it's restrictive. It's like pulling the arrow back, right? It's disciplined. You have to be very disciplined, but it's not a permanent diet. So I really work on getting people flexible. And once they're in remission and they can eat other foods and not have reactions, that's when we do more the location based, like extremely so, because then you can do more of certain plants or this and that. And you can go more on preference if you're doing things right. And so we'll do more of that. If someone goes into remission and they're living in, say, Mexico, I'm much more comfortable with them doing the 5-stage corn once they're in remission than someone in Norway. No corn. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Maybe for a holiday, if it's like really important to you. But otherwise, no. So it tends to be used, I use that more once someone gets into remission and as they're getting into remission. That said, it does really help when I have someone in kind of the more unique regions. So I've worked with a lot of people who work up in the northern parts of Sweden and Finland and Norway. And the foods that they can just so easily get are fabulous for healing and also what they've been raised on. So it's not a big hurdle for them to start eating whole real food in the traditional way because it's still a major part of their diet. It's just not been their whole diet. And so that can be really fun. I would certainly cater some of the lifestyle things. So right now we're in the polar night in the Arctic. So for that, you need a lot of candlelight or fireplace light. That red light is really important for the microbiome and for your circadian rhythm when you don't have a lot of sunlight. So those kind of things I do cater.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
What the Blue Zone is selling fits with the narrative of what we've heard really since the food pyramid and promotes that further. We tend to be like, okay, I'm going to have this organ and nothing else. That's not the ancestral way. The ancestral way would be